Hey, my fourth question today is, how do we find the right church? Let me begin by saying I believe God's got the right church for everybody. I believe all of us need a local church. There is one of the worst satanic lies I've ever heard in my life is kind of, well, I'm in the church, so I don't need a church. And that's true. But if you're not really in a church, I would question whether you're in the church, because you're not following the Bible anyway. The Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourself together. And if you finish the verse, it says, especially as the day draws near. And if you tell me you believe in the second coming of Jesus and you're not committed to a local church, Coco the clown comes to mind. So, but how do we find the right one? Again, let me give you a few answers. Number one, pray. Pray, believe you have received that church before you find it. So if I were imagine I'd moved to another town or that kind of scenario, and I would be saying, Lord, I want to find that right church you've got for me, and I would pray and believe I'd got it. Secondly, and in a way this relates to the first question I did about heresy, I would decide what are your non-negotiables in terms of a church. Yeah. What are the things for you that are not negotiable? I mean, to me, I won't give you an exhaustive list, but things like worship, where I can worship my brains out and be in God's presence, is a non-negotiable. For me, having a church that teaches the message of faith, and most churches don't, is a non-negotiable. For me, having a church where all the members of the church can move in the gifts of the Spirit is a non-negotiable. And I could give you many more. Like, my point is, I will visit any church, but I would not join a church. Somebody asked me the other day, Graham, do you preach in churches that teach against the gifts of the Spirit, that kind of thing? And I said, well, I will, but I go there to change them. I won't compromise on that. And have that list of non-negotiables. And can I say this? Again, I'm speaking as a pastor here. If you're looking to join that church, what I would actually do is get along with the pastor. Most pastors are very open. I am. If somebody wants to join my church and they say, hey, can I meet you for coffee? And I would write down a bunch of questions and be respectful and not critical in the way you ask those. But I see people all the time who join a church and 6 months, a year later, 2 years later, they figure out, oh, these guys don't really believe in this stuff. You know, a lot of churches have got very modern in their orthopraxy, the way they practice things, and they haven't actually changed their orthodoxy, what they actually believe. So sometimes you'll see, you know, cool stages and bright lights and smoke machines and boom, boom, boom music, and they think, oh, this church is alive. No, it's sometimes just really dead in terms of what it believes. So I would construct that list of things you believe, and I would get alone with the pastor or the leadership, whatever that looks like in that church, and really ask them those questions. You know, I think if you, and I personally believe every one of us should have an involvement. We should serve in the church. I just took the trash out in my church here, okay? God's great man of faith and power. I think all of us should serve practically in a church, but at the same time, I believe all of us should find the things where we can flourish. And if you believe you're called to teach or preach or pray for the sick and do things, you know, have that conversation with the leadership. Is that an accepted thing here? Now, if they were to say, hey, you've just joined here and we're not going to put you on the platform teaching, that would be normal. But talk about what would the pathway be after how much time. Could I join that ministry altar team? Are there opportunities after a season to teach? What does a season look like? Ask them, ladies, ask them about what they believe about women in ministry. Ask them what they believe about the sanctity of marriage and different things like that. You know, be honest. There's nothing worse than somebody investing months or years in building a relationship with the church and then flipping to another. And I think you would be better, a little bit like in marriage in a way, better. You see young people go out on dates having fun. Having fun is good, but dating, I don't like the word, but dating, courting, to use an old-fashioned word, is really a season to evaluate, can I invest in a lifelong relationship with this person? And I believe when we join a church, we should join a church with the optic, with the viewpoint, with the commitment level that says, I'm probably never going to leave this church. You know, by God's grace, I want to be here for the rest of my life. We shouldn't have that consumerism idea that, well, if this doesn't work out, there's another one down the road and another. I've really been in about 3 churches my entire life, I think. And I would say, because I've lived in 3 countries, I would say find that right one that you can commit to. And then when you see the faults, failings, the lack, the things that can frustrate you within that church, join the team and help change those things. Because if you've already defined what you believe, you can then build and help be a changer. And nothing is going to prize me away from the will of God in my life. Join a church where you believe it's God's will that I am here. And that way, when you're tempted to leave, you know you'll be stepping out of God's will. So I would take it really seriously. I'd pray, I'd believe, but I'd also ask a lot of questions and really find out what's going on under the hood, so to speak. Good.